Well, democracy is about opinion of the people, and the protest is allowed in a democratic setting. But every protest must be reasonably conceived to be able to make political sense. I think it's too early at this time in the life of this government for anybody to come out to say he wants to protest. First of all, there have not been any engagement where those who are sponsoring the protest was able to tell us the reasons for the protest. Secondly, given the global situation today and the insecurity in the country, we have a very fragile political environment that, if not managed and protected very well, may collapse the entire country. So those who are going to protest, what is the reason for the protest? And if they have no reason for the protest, I think our advice, we're meaning Nigerians, citizens of this country who are making sacrifices. Some of us have paid the supreme price for the existence of this country. We should guide our country very jealously. I think it is the wrong time for anybody to do any protest, because the implication of doing that, if care is not taken, is that it may be hijacked, like the NSAS experience.
Welcome back. Let's continue our discussion now on the planned protest that is supposed to happen from August the 1st to 10th. I'm now being joined on the program by Nelson Ekujimi, who is a public affairs analyst. Nelson, first is we don't know those behind this planned strike, and of course some people have actually called for a dialogue now, a dialogue and engagement between the government and the protesters or organizers of the protesters. And the question is, how can this dialogue actually happen when nobody is actually coming forward to say, look, they are the leaders of the protest, they are the organizers. So how can dialogue actually take place?
Well, that's...
and even the government too has been talking about dialogue.
Well, that is to tell you the hypocrisy and mischief of some Nigerians, because like you have rightly said, one had been asking all this while that who are the organizers of this protest. And you recollect that even when the Central Labour Organization called for dialogue, a lot of Nigerians were asking to dialogue with who? You want to dialogue with people that are faceless? And even if the government is calling for dialogue, the government is telling them, come out of your hiding. It means that these so-called organizers of these protests have other motive other than to protest for whatever they claim to that wants to make them to protest. Because just this morning, I got wind of the fact that there's an organization called Take It Back Movement, which I wouldn't know if it's the one that Shure is the AAC presidential candidate, Omoyele Shure.
That's in the 2023 presidential election. Yes, he actually runs Take It Back.
Yes,
movement.
if that organization belongs to him. And the question I ask, how come every time this young man loses election, the next thing is calling for revolution? If you want to be a politician, be a politician. If you want to be an activist, be an activist.
But then he's actually not come out to say, look, that he is the one behind this.
But he has been sending out a lot of tweets with demands. You need to go to his X handle, I mean, not Twitter now. To his X handle, he has been making a lot of posts, even on Facebook, calling people out. So one wonders what he aims to achieve by this, because this is a man who will in the morning be a politician, in the evening he will return back to activism.
But another question I want to ask, if the government, because personally, I still have my doubts about this whole thing about the protest. But it would appear the government has some information. The government would certainly know better than we do.
Yeah.
The security agencies would know.
Yeah.
But if the security agencies know those behind this, why not name them? And then after naming them, call them out and then try to see if they can actually dialogue with them.
Maybe the government or the security agencies have not been able to piece together the information that they have, because this is not the first time we're having protests in this country. Some of us have been are products of protest. And when we want to go on protest, we come out in the open. We even address a press conference and state our time, state the time we will go on the protest. But in this case, nobody knows until, what I saw today. So if the government is calling for dialogue, you don't expect the security agencies to rush to, invite or arrest these persons if they have not pieced together their information. So as the day goes by, Nigerians are watching, but we have an information for the so-called protest organizers, and it is that, in exercising their rights, they must recognize the rights of other Nigerians, such that we won't have a repeat of the 2020 NSAS protests.
And talking about the NSAS protests, I have heard some people say, look, that the strategy is that of the NSAS.
Absolutely, there's no doubt about that.
During no, I'm talking about strategy now in terms of the leaders not coming out or no one owning up to the leadership of the organization of the planned protest. But during the NSAS, at least we could identify some people as the organizers, and it was open. I mean,
but at the inception stage of NSAS, you could not identify anybody as the organizers. And even when they put out a 5-for-5 demand, you could not identify the organizers. And even when the government disbanded the SARS and acceded to the 5-for-5 demands, the next minute we saw an 18-point or is it 22-point agenda, which also included that former President Muhammadu Buhari must go. And even in this one, we are seeing, demands like President Bola Ahmed Tinubu must go. And for me, that is an assault on the Constitution of Nigeria, because as I sit here, it's an affront on my own democratic right, because I voted in the 2023 general election, and that right is guaranteed by the Constitution. So if President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is to vacate office, the Constitution stipulates the procedure. So anybody saying is going on a protest that the president of Nigeria should resign is liable to to be charged for treason, because it's against the Constitution. So this so-called protests, I don't know if it will eventually hold. We've had a lot of stories that they are meeting underground, they are mobilizing, but they can be rest assured that even we Nigerians who don't believe in the protests, who have always championed dialogue and discussions, debates on issues, will tell them that, look, gentlemen, you need to exercise your rights within the confines of the law. If you infringe on my own right, I might have to report you to the security agencies to do the needful. Let
me ask you this, because one of my guests actually said one of the reasons why the organizers are refusing to come out to identify themselves could be because they are scared that the security agents may go after them and arrest them. He gave an example of somebody who was arrested and later released and all of that. Do you think that's enough reason why they are not identifying themselves?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Like I told you earlier on, I'm a product of protest. We've had situations whereby even when we want to have a protest, we write to the police authorities to provide us security. And the police authorities at times even invite us to come and explain, to give them the itinerary of the protest. But in this case, anybody say they are going underground before fear of arrest, then we should be suspicious that these so-called protest organizers have other motive apart from protesting against their slogan of end bad governance, because I don't understand what end bad governance means. I want you to
are you even against the idea of holding a protest?
No, absolutely not. But what I'm saying here is that if you are holding a protest, it's within your constitutional right. But in holding your protest, you must respect the rights of other citizens. It must be within the confines of the law. You recollect that in the 2020 NSAS, we saw the burning, looting, killing, maiming, cannibalism of security agencies, attacking police stations and armories, cutting away arms and ammunition. So we don't want a repeat of that. If you want to hold your protest, in fact, in one of my engagements earlier today, I even called on the Lagos State government to provide the protesters Ganifa Emek Park or the MK Abiola Park in Ojota, such that if they want to hold their protest there for the next 10 years, so be it. It's
As
within
you
their
saw in
rights.
2012 during the
Yes, during the
Yes,
Ojota protest. So they should
against
hold it
fuel
within
subsidy.
a comfort so that people who want to go about their legitimate business are not, their rights are not infringed upon. You have the right to protest, but please don't infringe on my right. The right to protest is not, we should also recognize that the right to protest is not an absolute right. The security agencies have a right to maintain law and order. And if the security agencies have information that your protest could lead to a breakdown of law and order, they have a right to abort it. And even if the security agencies have information that even you, the protester, that your life could be in danger, they have a right to go and rescue you and ensure that your life is safe. So there's no right that is absolute anywhere in the world.
I mean, you have said you've taken part in protests in the past, but let me ask you this. Is there no other better way to resolve issues than protest? And the reason I asked is, you look at all the protests we've had in this country. I mean, they always end up on the negotiation table. The NSAS, for instance, that you referred to in 2020, eventually what happened? There was a sitting down and talking. So the question is, are there no other ways of really getting grievances addressed, getting the government now to address the grievances of citizens?
Deji, I will tell you for free that there are so many other ways, but it depends on the motive of the protesters or the level of engagement with the authorities. We've had situations whereby we have engaged authorities and they have refused to accede, and we were forced to go on protest. But before going on protest, we must have had engagement. But in this case, if you look at the body language or the body odor of this protest, you see that it is political. You see persons whom in the last 2023 general elections either contested or supported a candidate of a party that lost. They are the arrowheads of this, protest. If you look at their social media, and some of us have, termed it a political protest, because as much as you have a right to protest against, I also, as a citizen, have a right to protest for, because it is what I believe in. So, like you rightly said, no matter the grievances, it is better to judge than to war. So you expect that these protesters should itemize their demands, because if you look at some of the demands that have been flying in the public space, they are laughable. That the president should decree the legislature to become unicameral. Do they understand the workings of democracy? Then they are making demands for the release of somebody who is undergoing trial in the court of law, demanding, is it 250,000 or 3,000 naira for the worker? When the government, the private sector, and the organized labor, these are the parties that is recognized under law to discuss minimum wage. No law in Nigeria empowers Mr. President by unilaterally to, decree what a minimum wage national minimum wage should be. So if you look at all these demands flying up there in the social media, definitely there is more to this protest than about governance or about the cost of living. It is just like in 2020, when some persons, because they lost the 2019 general elections, felt aggrieved, they hid under the NSAS, which was supposed to be a noble protest against police brutality, to perpetuate havoc, anarchy, pains and sorrow to Nigerian people. Today, this is 2024. This is just like a repeat. We just had an election in 2023. So we are like, they are trying to reenact, but they can be rest assured that Nigerians are wiser. We won't allow anybody to unleash violence on our people or on our national assets. If you want to protest, you must respect the laws of the land, and you must respect the rights of every citizen. Just like your rights also to protest must be respected and protected.
Nelson Kujime, thank you very much for coming on the program. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, we'll take a short break and we'll be right back. Stay with us, don't go away.
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
Because when when you go into public office, you must be ready to answer to the people.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On DEJI360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
DEJI360, dissecting the issues.